When we think about people moving in California, we usually picture them packing up and leaving the state altogether. But there's a completely different, massive population shift happening that most of us don't see, one that's literally reshaping Northern California from the inside out. All right, let's get into it.
So what you're seeing here, this is way more than just a map. This is basically a snapshot of a brand new economic reality taking shape, the Northern California megaregion. Think of it as this huge, interconnected system where the old lines between the super expensive coast and the farming heartland are just dissolving.
For as long as most of us can remember, the Bay Area and the Central Valley felt like two different planets, right? One was this global hub for tech and money, and the other was, the nation's breadbasket. Well, that story is changing fast. They're blending together, and it's all being driven by this powerful, mostly one-way flow of people.
Okay, now this is where it gets really wild. Look at the sheer imbalance of this whole thing. I mean, sure, people are moving in both directions. That's normal. But the data shows that the number of people moving from the Bay Area to the Central Valley is a staggering 60% higher than the number of people moving back the other way. So what in the world is pushing everybody east?
Well, the answer really boils down to one simple thing: money. The main engine behind this huge internal migration is the absolutely crushing cost of living in the Bay Area. It's pushed that classic dream of owning a home completely out of reach for millions of people. This quote from the research just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures what's going on. It's this story of people cashing out of a ridiculously hot market. I mean, think about it. The money that gets you a tiny starter condo in the Bay Area can buy you a big, beautiful home with a yard just a couple hours drive away. That financial pull is it's incredibly powerful. And just to put a fine point on it, look at this number, over $2 million. That was the median, the middle-of-the-road home value in San Mateo County, right in the heart of Silicon Valley a few years ago. For almost anyone, that's not just expensive, it's a wall. There's no way in. Okay, now, let's look at the other side of the coin. Under $400,000 for the median home in Fresno. This right here, this contrast, it perfectly illustrates the economic gravity that's pulling people eastward. The same California dream is basically on sale for a tiny fraction of the price. And hey, this isn't just about buying a house. The rental market is telling the exact same story. You can see that before the pandemic, rents in the Central Valley were already on the rise. But then, look what happened during COVID. Bay Area rents actually dropped or stayed flat, while Central Valley rents just took off like a rocket. The demand literally just packed its bags and moved inland. So, with this massive wave of people moving inland, it really makes you wonder, where exactly are they all going? Let's zoom in on one of the main destinations to see what this trend actually looks like for people on the ground. For so many people, the Central Valley is starting to represent a much more doable version of that California dream. One with more space, maybe a bit of a slower pace, and a real chance to actually own something and build some wealth. It's become a magnet for families, first-time home buyers, and even investors.
Let's just use Fresno as a perfect example. And it's really important to get this. It's not just because the housing is cheap. Fresno has its own growing economy, especially in huge sectors like healthcare and education. It's pulling in people who aren't just looking for a bedroom community, but a whole new city to plant roots in. Especially now, with remote work, that desire for a bigger house and more space is a huge deal.
And just look at the variety you can find in one city. You've got a cool, artsy hub like the Tower District, where you can still find a home in the low 300s. Then you've got these newer, family-friendly developments up north. And you even have beautiful, historic, upscale neighborhoods like Fig Garden. There's truly something for pretty much every kind of buyer.
But, and this is a big but, this whole migration wave isn't all sunshine and roses. While it might be solving the problem of housing affordability for some, it's creating a brand new, massive problem: the rise of the supercommuter.
So what in the world is a supercommute? Well, the official definition is any one-way trip to work that takes more than 90 minutes or covers over 50 miles. And for tens of thousands of people living in this new mega-region, this absolutely grueling journey has become the hidden cost of finding a home they can actually afford.
And it's so important to realize this isn't just one type of person. It's easy to picture a tech worker who can afford the gas and the long drive, but it's also a huge number of construction workers, manufacturing workers, and service industry folks who are forced into these insane commutes just to find wages that can support their families.
This graph is just wow. It shows this cliff that morning traffic volume fell off of the second the pandemic hit. And that huge sudden drop, it reveals the unbelievable scale of the daily trek that was happening, day in and day out. It was like this invisible river of cars flowing from the valley to the bay and back again every single day. This example from the research really puts a human face on all this data. Just try to imagine it. You're a construction worker, you live in Merced, you're completely priced out of renting anywhere near your job in San Francisco, so you make that brutal commute every single day because the wages are just that much higher over there. That is the impossible trade-off that thousands of people are making.
Okay, so this mega region is here to stay. It's a reality. These two areas are basically fused together economically. The massive question we have to ask now is, what do we do about it? How does California possibly adapt to this new shared future?
At its heart, the problem is still housing. The entire region has a housing deficit that's been building up for 30 years. At the speed we're building now, researchers figure it could take 1 to 2 decades just to close that gap. That is a monumental, almost unimaginable challenge.
So what are some possible solutions? Well, the research points to a few big ideas. First, we have to make it dramatically faster and easier to build new housing, especially along the freeways and transit lines that stitch these regions together. Second, we need to provide immediate help for renters to keep them from being pushed out. And finally, and this might be the most important one, we have to start planning at a mega region level. Thinking city by city just isn't going to cut it anymore. Which really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? The Bay Area and the Central Valley are, for all practical purposes, inseparable now. Their futures are completely tied together. The challenge isn't about how to keep them apart anymore. It's about how to build a single, connected future that's fair and sustainable for every single person who calls this mega region home. When you look at it from way up here, you can't see the county lines. You can't see the mountains that are supposed to divide these places. All you see is one single, connected network of communities. The real question is whether we can start to plan for it that way.